Hi, first grade. It's Mrs. Norris here. I hope you are having a terrific day. All right, so today we are going to pick up with a little bit of what you were talking about with Miss or learning about from Miss Taylor this week. So I'm going to say some words and I want you to see if you can figure out what they have in common. Are you ready? Okay. Read, write, sit, jump, crawl, sleep. What do you think? Anything coming to you yet? Very good. If you said, Mrs. Norris, those all sound like verbs, you would be correct. And if you remember from earlier this week, verbs are action words. They describe action words. Now, you'll learn that there are other types of verbs as well, but we are focusing on those verbs that tell about an action. So I always ask myself if I'm trying to figure out if something is a verb, I think to myself, could I act this out? Could I do this? And if the answer is yes, then chances are it's a verb. So let's try a couple. So feel free if you would like to stand up and try to act out these verbs, feel free. So the first one is crawl. I'll give you a second and see, can you act out crawling? Right, so that's a verb, right? You would go like this, you're crawling. What about the next one? Read. Can you show, and even if you have to just pretend, what would it look like if you were reading or to read, right? You might do something like this. Very interesting. Very good. All right, what about the next one? Jump, jump, right? We can stand up and jump. Excellent. Go ahead, you take a turn. Great. All right, what about the next one on the list? We have clap. Oh, that's a good one. Could probably do that really easy right where you are. Clap. Excellent. And the last one, I'll let you give that a try. Go ahead. You read the last word on the list right here. We would know that with that short I in the middle. Very good. Sit. So I will sit. And now I just did that verb as well. All right. So verbs, the verbs that we just took a look at are what we would call present or present tense verbs. They tell about what is happening now. But what about if you did something yesterday, or you did something last week, or last year even? There are verbs that tell about what's called the past. So let's see if you can figure something out here. 1 second. Okay, so let's look at these sentences on the screen and see if they sound right to you. The first one says, I work yesterday. I work yesterday. Do you think that sounds right? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Give a thumbs down if that doesn't sound right to you. I work yesterday. I don't know. Let's read the next one and see. The next one says, we walk to school this morning. We walk to school this morning. I don't know. That one just doesn't sound right either. What do you think? Not quite. And then let's look at the last one. My sister wished for a toy last week. My sister wished for a toy last week. I don't know. That just doesn't sound right either. Looking at that first one again, I work yesterday. Can you say to yourself and say out loud at home or where you are, how would you say that correctly? How could you fix that sentence and make it sound right? What do you think? Go ahead and try. Instead of I worked yesterday, we could say, yes, I worked yesterday. I worked yesterday. Now, what about the next one? We walked to school this morning. How could we fix that one? We walked to school this morning, right? Did you say we walked to school this morning? And then the last one, my sister wished for a toy last week. Did you think it should say, my sister wished for a toy last week? My sister wished for a toy last week? If you did, that would be right. And you know what we did to change each of those words? We added an ending. We added the ending ed. And when we do that to many verbs, now there are some verbs that you don't add ed to and they follow some different rules and do some different things. But for many of the verbs, the action verbs, the action words, if we want to change it from meaning present tense or right now to meaning past tense, which is before or in the past, it happened before, we add ed, right? So here's our new sentences. Like we just said, like you just thought on the last slide, this is how we would correct them. I worked yesterday. I walked to school this morning. My sister wished for a toy last week. That was exactly what you thought on the last one when we tried to correct them. So we add ed to make a verb mean it happened in the past. Okay, so you also may have noticed something, that even though we're adding ed to each of these words, and let me just get back to the correct sentence here, or the correct slide rather. So here were the corrected sentence. Even though we're adding ed, you may have noticed that some of these words make different sounds when we add ed. So listen to the word worked. You hear worked. What sound do you hear at the end of that? If you thought you heard the T sound, you would be correct. I know who would have thought, but the ED can make the T sound, the T sound in some words. Sometimes the ED sound can just make a D sound. So like, for example, the word stay or the word stayed. When we add ed at the end of stay, it makes the d sound, just the d sound. And then sometimes the ed can make the ed sound. Like if you have the word start and you add ed to the end of it, instead of start, it becomes started, ed at the end. So I just wanted to call your attention to that you might be noticing that, yes, we're adding ed, but you're hearing some different sounds like t or d or ed. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. But the main thing to remember is verbs are action words, and past tense verbs tell us about actions that happened in the past. You got it. All right, so when this video is over, you have a short seesaw activity. You can go on the student response template or page of this activity, and there are just some verbs listed on one side, and we would like you to write the past tense verb on the other side. You'll see. So you're going to add ed. You can use the pen or the typing tool to add the ed. Now, one quick thing I will mention, if a word already ends with e, like the word move, for example, it already has an e at the end, you can just add a d. So you might see that example on your activity. Keep an eye out for that. So go ahead and work on your activity. You can submit it when you're finished. Again, you're just rewriting the present tense and you're turning it into past tense by adding what to the end? ed. You got it. Very good. All right, keep up the great work, and I'll talk to you soon.